Mia gripped the iron gate, its cold metal biting into her palm. The hinges groaned as she pushed it open, a sound like a weary sigh. The house loomed before her, dark and imposing against the twilight sky. It was hers now, this relic of a bygone era, bequeathed to her by a grandmother she barely knew. Stepping onto the overgrown path, Mia felt a shiver crawl down her spine. The air grew heavy, thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. She paused, gazing up at the house's shadowy facade. Each window seemed like a watchful eye, scrutinizing her every move. With a deep breath, she steeled herself and stepped across the threshold. The door creaked shut behind her, the sound echoing through the silent house. Dust motes danced in the faint light, filtering through grimy windows. The air was stale, heavy with the weight of years. Mia took a hesitant step forward, her footsteps muffled by the thick Persian rugs that covered the floor. This was her inheritance, a house brimming with secrets and shadows. As she ventured deeper into its depths, Mia couldn't shake the feeling that she was not alone. The house was a labyrinth of dimly lit hallways and cavernous rooms. Cobwebs clung to ornate chandeliers, their crystals long since dimmed with dust. Heavy velvet curtains, faded to the color of dried blood, shrouded the windows, shutting out the last vestiges of daylight. The furniture, draped in white sheets, loomed like phantoms in the gloom. Mia wandered through the house, her footsteps echoing in the silence. She ran her fingers along the dusty surfaces of antique sideboards and peered into tarnished silver picture frames. Each object seemed to whisper of a forgotten past, a time when the house pulsed with life. In the grand dining room, a massive mahogany table dominated the space. 12 chairs, upholstered in faded velvet, surrounded it, their high backs like silent sentinels. Mia could almost hear the echo of laughter, the clinking of glasses, the murmur of conversations long gone. But beneath the surface beauty, a sense of unease permeated the house. The shadows seemed to deepen, stretching out like grasping claws. The silence was broken only by the creaking of floorboards beneath her feet, each sound sending a shiver down her spine. As night fell, the house truly came alive. The shadows deepened, stretching and twisting into grotesque shapes that danced on the walls. The silence, once heavy and oppressive, was now punctuated by a symphony of unsettling sounds. Floorboards groaned underfoot, even when Mia stood perfectly still. The wind howled down the chimney, sounding like the mournful cries of a lost soul. It was in the stillness of her bedroom, however, that the true horror began. As Mia lay in the darkness, listening to the beating of her own heart, she heard it, a faint whisper just at the edge of her hearing. At first she dismissed it as the house settling, the wind playing tricks on her ears, but the whispers persisted, growing louder with each passing night. They seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves, soft and sibilant, like dry leaves rustling in the breeze. And then one night, she heard it clearly, her name, whispered with a chilling intimacy that sent a jolt of fear through her. Mia sat bolt upright in bed, her heart pounding in her chest. The whispers continued, swirling around her, taunting her. They were no longer the sounds of the house settling, they were the voices of the dead, reaching out from beyond the grave. And driven by a mixture of fear and morbid curiosity, Mia resolved to uncover the truth behind the whispers. She spent her days exploring the house, searching for clues to its past. It was during one of these explorations that she discovered the attic. Hidden behind a heavy tapestry in the upstairs hallway, a narrow door creaked open to reveal a steep flight of stairs. The air in the attic was thick with dust and the musty scent of decay. Cobwebs hung like macabre decorations from the rafters. Mia cautiously made her way through the clutter of forgotten objects, moth-eaten furniture, discarded toys, and stacks of dusty books. In the far corner, beneath a grimy window, she discovered a small wooden chest, its surface covered in intricate carvings. The chest was unlocked. Mia lifted the lid, her heart pounding with anticipation. Inside, nestled amongst yellowed lace and dried lavender, lay a leather-bound journal. Its pages were brittle with age, the ink faded but still legible. On the first page, written in a spidery hand, were the words, "The Diary of Eleanor Vance." Mia recognized the name instantly. Eleanor Vance was her grandmother, the woman who had left her this house of shadows. With trembling hands, Mia opened the journal and began to read. Section 5, A Grandmother's Tale. Eleanor's diary entries painted a chilling picture of her life in the house. She, too, had been plagued by the whispers, tormented by the unseen presence that haunted its halls. But Eleanor's entries revealed something far more sinister than Mia could have ever imagined. Centuries ago, the land upon which the house stood had been the site of a horrific tragedy. A young woman accused of witchcraft had been burned at the stake on that very ground. Her dying screams, filled with rage and despair, had seeped into the very fabric of the house, forever binding her spirit to the land. According to Eleanor's journal, the whispers were the voices of the dead, trapped within the walls of the house. They fed on fear, growing stronger with each passing night, and they were bound to the house by a powerful curse, a curse that seemed to have ensnared Mia as well. As Mia delved deeper into her grandmother's words, a sense of dread washed over her. The whispers seemed to intensify, swirling around her like a malevolent wind. She realized with a growing horror that she was not just living in a haunted house. She was trapped within a nightmare from which there might be no escape. Section 6. The spirits awaken. The whispers escalated into guttural moans echoing through the house like tortured souls. The shadows danced with renewed vigor, taking on more defined shapes that seemed to writhe and contort before her very eyes. The temperature plummeted, and a bone-chilling cold seeped into Mia's very marrow. Fear, raw and primal, seized Mia's heart. She could feel the spirits' power growing, their malevolence seeping into every corner of the house. She was no longer just an observer, a witness to the haunting. She was now the target of their rage, their desperation. Objects began to move on their own. Doors slammed shut with bone-jarring force, furniture overturned, crashing to the floor. The house was in a state of chaos, a physical manifestation of the spirit's growing power. Through the cacophony, Mia could hear her grandmother's words echoing in her mind. They feed on fear. They grow stronger with each passing night, and on the 7th night they will break free. 6 nights she had endured, 6 nights of terror and torment, and now the 7th night was upon her. Section 7. Trapped. Panic surged through Mia, a tidal wave of terror that threatened to consume her. She had to get out, to escape the house before the spirits reached the height of their power. But as she stumbled toward the front door, she realized with a sickening certainty that she was trapped. The doorknob wouldn't budge. It was as if an unseen hand held it fast, refusing to release her from the house's clutches. She pounded against the heavy oak, her fists bruised and bloodied, but the door wouldn't yield. Frantically, Mia raced from room to room, testing windows and searching for any possible escape route. But every door was locked, every window nailed shut. The house held her captive, a prisoner in her own ancestral home. As the shadows lengthened and the 7th night descended, Mia found herself back in the grand dining room. The 12 chairs surrounding the massive mahogany table seemed to close in on her, their high backs like menacing figures in the flickering candlelight. The whispers were deafening now, a chorus of anguished screams and guttural growls that seemed to tear at the very fabric of her sanity. Mia sank to her knees, her body trembling uncontrollably as the full weight of her situation crashed down upon her. She was trapped, alone and defenseless, with only the malevolent spirits of the house for company. And as the clock ticked down to midnight, Mia knew that her time was running out. Section 8. The 7th night. The air crackled with energy as the clock struck 12, heralding the arrival of the 7th night. The whispers reached a fever pitch, morphing into ear-splitting shrieks that seemed to claw at Mia's sanity. The shadows swirled and pulsed, solidifying into grotesque figures that emerged from the walls like phantoms from a nightmare. The temperature plummeted, and a bone-chilling cold enveloped Mia, seeping into her lungs with every ragged breath. She could feel their presence now, cold and malevolent, pressing in on her from all sides. The spirits were no longer content to torment her from the shadows. They materialized before her very eyes, their forms shifting and swirling like smoke in the flickering candlelight. Their eyes glowed with an eerie light, reflecting the flames of the inferno that had claimed their earthly lives. Mia cowered on the floor, her back pressed against the cold stone wall. Terror, raw and consuming, paralyzed her, rendering her unable to move or speak. She could only watch in mute horror as the spirits closed in, their forms becoming more distinct, their features contorted into masks of rage and despair. With a blood-curdling shriek that seemed to shatter the very foundation of the house, the spirits descended upon Mia. Their cold, spectral hands reached out, their touch sending a jolt of icy pain through her body. Section 9, A New Beginning. The old house stood silent once more, its shadowed facade a grim testament to the horrors it had witnessed. The whispers were gone, stilled for now, but their echoes lingered in the very fabric of the house, waiting to ensnare the next unsuspecting soul. A moving van pulled up to the curb, its arrival heralding a new chapter in the house's long and troubled history. A young family, filled with hope and excitement for their new beginning, emerged from the vehicle. They were oblivious to the darkness that lurked within the walls, the malevolent spirits that lay dormant, biding their time. As the new family crossed the threshold, their laughter echoing through the silent halls, a faint whisper stirred in the shadows. It started slowly, subtly, like the rustling of dry leaves in a gentle breeze. But with each passing night, the whispers grew louder, more insistent, their tone shifting from mournful to menacing. The spirits were awakening once more, hungry for fear, eager to feed on the terror of the unsuspecting souls who had dared to disturb their slumber. The cycle had begun anew,